Hey folks, Stray here. I took in the critique and the comments left on the last video, and we decided I was being too convoluted with where I wanted the series to go. So we decided to chop it all up into different segments. We're going to do a smaller video series on specific topics pertaining to raiding and raid leading in Final Fantasy. We're going to live stream the top progress, and my redemption arc is just gonna sort itself out. So, welcome to today's topic video. We're gonna focus on communication in raiding in Final Fantasy, specifically communicating in the interpersonal relationships within a static, as well as breaking it up into shot calling versus raid leading. Before I get too deep into the body of the content at hand, I want to emphasize that if there's one important thing to take away from this entire video, and one thing that I really want you to remember coming out of this, is to keep the human element when you're communicating with your raid members. Your raiders and your static are supposed to be your peers and your friends. They're not just some emotionless machines there to roll the GCD at your command. I think it's important that you remember that, and remember that everybody is going through different things and has different skill sets and learns at different paces, and to try your best to acquiesce to that while also keeping the static on track and progressing at a reasonable pace for the expectations that you set. Jumping right off the tail end of that point, let's go right into the interpersonal communication part of raiding and raid leading in Final Fantasy XIV. You have to be aware of the difference of talking to someone and talking at someone. Healthy communication is a two-way street, and it involves both respect and understanding from both parties involved. You should be, yes, as the leader, giving instruction or setting the pace for your team, but you also want to pause at times and give opportunity for some talking back from your raid members, taking information in from them, gaining how they're feeling at the time or their input. And then you as the leader will then take that input and decide what to do with it from there. It's a lot of give and take, and it's just a lot of giving respect to each other. Respect is the biggest thing in all this. One of the big things that comes up when running a static or being in a static in Final Fantasy is bad news, whether it's having to remove a static member, having to replace a static member that just can't continue raiding anymore or doesn't want to, not meeting the goals that you set for yourselves, people having bad nights. There could be a ton of reasons why there's bad news, but bad news is going to abound in every group. It's just a fact of raiding. So as the raid leader and as somebody who's trying to be a good person and be kind to their raid members, I think you owe them the ability to directly confront the issues at hand, and don't beat around the bush with them. If you have bad news to deliver, you address the news, address the effect that it will have, and try to preemptively cut it off. To extrapolate on that, one of the examples I mentioned is replacing a static member. I had to do this recently for our Omega group. So what I did to go about that was I approached the static member directly. There's no need to publicly shame them or anything like that. Things happen. I told them, hey, this is what I plan to do. This is why I'm doing it. Know that this isn't entirely your fault, and this isn't against you as a person. This is just what needs to happen for the group to keep moving forward for the goals that we all set for ourselves. And I made sure that they understood that this wasn't hard feelings towards them. Then, after I've established that with the person in private, I then went back to the group. I said, hey, we have moved forward with replacing XYZ person, and we are now going to take on so-and-so. So there's the addressing what we're doing. I've said we're replacing the person. I'm addressing what effect it'll have will be down a person. I've addressed that by saying we're taking on so-and-so. I've already found somebody. I've brought them on to trial. Let's see how they fit with the group. And then I stopped and said, is that cool with everybody? Anybody have any issues with that? And I let everybody give me their input. Generally, everyone was pretty cool with it. They trust my decision making, and we trialed the replacement that I had found, and they were fit, so we're all good from there. That's about it for the interpersonal aspect of raid leading. Honestly, I can't teach you how to be a good human being or a compassionate human being. I can just emphasize that respect and compassion go a long way when raid leading, and they should be what you strive for doing it. So instead, we'll move to in-raid raid leading and communication skills. First point to make with that is raid leading and shot calling are two separate jobs, and you shouldn't be afraid to delegate if you're comfortable on one role but not the other. You could be a great person at decision making behind the scenes, running a static, scheduling, making sure everybody's having a good time, making sure prog gets done, but you could be dog shit at reading mechanics and doing callouts. That's fine. Find a raid member who's maybe more comfortable with doing callouts and ask them if they're okay with doing that for you. Going on from there, callouts in specific. Callouts should be done preferably, from what I've been gathering myself and what I've talked to other raiders about. Callouts should be clear and direct. You should be giving specific instructions rather than being vague with them, and it should be short and sweet. Don't tell your raiders how to solve the mechanic coming up. They probably already know how to do that, and that would take too long to do every mechanic. You're going to be like, okay, stacks are coming out here, so, tanks, healers, you're going up north. Like, by then you've already said way too many words. The mechanic's already going off. Instead, assign mechanics names, especially for mechanics that the cast bar on the boss have the same name. This tier, for example, Carbuncle. You've got Ruby 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like, they're all just called Ruby Glow, but they do different things. So instead of saying, hey, we got Ruby 1 coming up, I think we just called it Corner Mech. Like, avoid the poison Corner Mech. So it sets a tempo for your raiders, and it keeps them focused and aware of what's coming up without flooding their brains and confusing them, right? If you're speaking a million words per second at them, they're gonna lose track and somebody's gonna fuck up. But if you just say corner buddies, boom, mechanic, they're thinking of the mechanic that you guys have established is called corner buddies. They know it's coming up, they know how to solve it in their own responsibility. It's up to them to then do it. In the unlucky scenario that something does go wrong, you've done your raid call out, somebody messes up, it happens. Being able to adapt and improvise is a good skill for a raid leader to have, and it does come with time. But one of the important things to note during that and to take with you into your toolkit is to be very specific with your instructions. You make a snap decision and you tell them exactly who and exactly what you want done. You want to avoid the bystander effect of you saying, hey, can we get mid on this? And everybody just assuming that, somebody else has mid, they'll pop it. I'm not going to pop it. Or the inverse of that effect, you say, hey, can we get, extra mid on this? We're going to be light on this mechanic. And then having 5 people bust their cooldowns and then not having anything for the next one, right? Like, instead, the way to approach it is if you realize mid's going to be shy, point at one specific player and ask them to solve it for you in exactly how you want it to be done. A good example of this is going into high concept phase transition of P8S P2 this tier. Our healers, goofed up. They canceled a cast and had to burn some extra mid on natural alignments, so they were going to be shy on a little bit. Going into the phase transition, we might have died to damage. Instead of saying, hey, we're going to be a bit shy, just say, hey, Dark Knight player, can we get missionary on this transition here instead? Or if they miss a single target heal, somebody's too far away during high concept, you get somebody going to the Bravo corner with their splice, and the healers are all the way up in the stacks, the splice stacks on the northwest corner. Just being able to say, like, hey, can we get Gunbreaker? Can we put Heart of Corundum on, and then name the player that needs it? Just something specific, short like that, call out an exact player to deal with it, and get it done. Don't say, somebody help, the dancer, and then have fucking missionary oblation, corundum, benediction all hit the dancer, and then everybody's out of their single target. And then if somebody else ends up needing something, you're out. You've capped on resources, right? That's about it, though. Honestly, communication is pretty simple to explain, hard to do, right? Easy in theory, hard in practice. It's something that'll take time. If I can emphasize anything again, please just keep the human element to your connection with your people. Be aware that they do have thoughts and feelings of their own, as well as you do, and try to keep it respectful. That's the important part. These are your friends, your peers. You're going to be with them for a lengthy amount of time. Let's keep it happy. Let's keep it nice. Thanks, guys.